This week saw the burial of Adelaide soldier Thomas Dale, who was killed in Afghanistan. And tomorrow is the 9th anniversary of the event that took Private Dale and others overseas, the 9/11 terror attacks. The collapse of the Twin Towers is an indelible image, but according to school principal Stuart Knox, it means little to a generation of young people that's grown up since that day. And it's personal for Mr Knox because his brother Andrew died in the attacks. Now he's calling for the events of September the 11th to be considered as part of the new National Schools curriculum. It's a call backed by South Australia's Education Minister.
It was the day that changed the world. And still, the smallest of things are often not the same.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, don't live under a flight path at all, but I always look up still, especially if you're in the CBD. So it's like little things like that bring things back to you.
Oh my God, there it goes!
9 years ago, on September the 11th, Stuart Knox was working in outback South Australia. His twin brother, Andrew Knox, was working in the World Trade Centre's North Tower. After the plane hit, Andrew Knox telephoned a friend. A few days later, his brother in Adelaide recounted that conversation.
We had Andrew on speakerphone at first, and then we heard all of the screams and him yelling, "We're all going to die," as they ran up the last flights of stairs to the roof. I asked if they were okay, and I finally got a yeah. Then I heard Andrew's co-worker say, "Andrew, I can't breathe anymore." And Andrew replied, "I can't breathe either."
That interview put an Australian face to the tragedy, but one of the few people never to have seen it is Stuart Knox himself.
No, I haven't. And at the time, everything that was done afterwards and on the year anniversary I've never looked at. It sits in a cupboard in case I ever do, and we are 9 years on and I haven't chosen to. But I guess that there'll come a time where I want to show my son.
But it's not just his own child that he thinks should know about the events and aftermath of September the 11th.
Good morning, everybody.
Stuart Knox is a primary school principal, and what he sees 9 years on is reminiscent of the Vietnam generation that grew up having no idea of what that war was about. Now, Stuart Knox teaches kids with no memory of that clear blue day in New York and what came out of it.
Well, we certainly do have a generation that has no understanding of why we're in Afghanistan, of where this came from, what it actually meant and what it stood for, and there are a lot of people that don't see the relevance of September 11 to the war in Afghanistan now, and in some ways that is sad. It's why people probably don't, especially kids, know why our troops are over there.
Which he says is a problem. 21 Australians have died in Afghanistan since 2002, 10 of them since June this year. Colonel Shane Gabriel was in charge of reconstruction in Afghanistan and mentoring their national army, with, he says, some success.
Absolutely. I really believe that, not just because of the effort and the sacrifice that was made within our own battle group, but I believe every individual member of the battle group was genuinely committed to this mission. We know why we're there, and we know that we must be successful.
But he argues success there is anchored in support back home, which in turn depends on understanding what happened on 9/11.
People need to understand these are very important issues. We don't do what we do in Afghanistan lightly, clearly, and I think it's important that Australians understand why their military is committed to this coalition.
Get out of here! Move it! Come on!
Immediately after the terror attacks, Stuart Knox believes the education system did a much better job of telling kids what had happened. But as their questions have tapered off, so has the teaching.
There was information provided to schools so that they could actually address terrorism and what that actually meant. And so I guess now they don't. We've got a national curriculum coming in, and I guess as part of history, it's probably got more chance of being covered in our schools.
And his idea of readdressing the events of September 11 through a national curriculum appeals to others who knew Andrew Knox.
He was a friend, a pretty good friend.
Jay Weatherill is also in a position to help make it happen. He's South Australia's Education Minister, Stuart Knox's boss.
Well, I think a national curriculum does present an opportunity. It is going to look at history. This is